The silence of space around Surveillance Station Kepler-7 was broken only by the steady hum of sensors sweeping the border regions of the Calvari Empire. Admiral Theron stood on the observation deck, his forearms clasped behind his back in the traditional posture of vigilance. For 20 cycles, he had monitored this sector without incident. The Empire's borders were secure, its protocols absolute, and its database comprehensive. Every vessel that crossed into Imperial space was catalogued, identified, and processed according to regulations established over 3,000 years of galactic dominance. The alert tone shattered his routine meditation. "Admiral," called sensor operator Milvis from her station below. "Unknown contact, Sector 9, 7 Alpha. No transponder signal." Theron descended the spiral ramp with practiced ease. His species had evolved on a high-gravity world, and the station's artificial gravity felt light beneath his feet. "Display," he commanded. The main holographic projector flickered to life, showing a three-dimensional representation of the border zone. A single red marker pulsed at the edge of sensor range, moving at a steady velocity toward the inner systems. "Specifications," Theron said. Milvis manipulated her console, her secondary arms dancing across holographic controls, while her primary arms typed rapidly on the physical keyboard. "Mass readings are inconsistent. Energy signature doesn't match any known classification." She paused, her crest rising in what Theron recognized as confusion. "Admiral, the computer has no match in the database." "No match?" Theron moved closer to the display. In 3,000 years, the Calvari Empire had encountered and catalogued 417 spacefaring species. Every ship design, every propulsion system, every energy signature was recorded in exhaustive detail. "Check again." "Already running tertiary verification," Milvis replied. Her eyes never left her screens. "No match across all parameters. The ship's configuration is completely unknown." Theron felt his secondary heart begin to accelerate. A physiological response his species experienced when facing the genuinely novel. Hailing frequencies. All standard protocols. The communications officer, a young Calvari named Restock, initiated contact. "Unknown vessel. This is Imperial Surveillance Station Kepler-7. You have entered Calvari space without proper authorization. Transmit your identification codes and species designation immediately." They waited. The red marker continued its steady progression, unchanging in speed or heading. "Repeat the hail," Theron ordered. "Cycle through all registered language protocols." Restock complied, sending the message in 47 different languages, covering every known species in this region of the galaxy. The unknown vessel's only response was its continued movement deeper into Imperial territory. "Could it be automated?" asked Milvis. "An ancient probe, perhaps, with no match in our historical records?" Theron shook his head. "Unlikely. But that energy signature suggests active power generation, consistent with a crewed vessel." None. He made his decision quickly. 20 cycles of uneventful monitoring had not dulled his training. "Send for Commander Cyrell. Have her bring Battle Group Hammerfall to these coordinates." He transmitted the location data with a gesture. "Standard interdiction protocols. I want that ship stopped and boarded. If it won't identify itself, we'll identify it ourselves." The response came within minutes. Commander Cyrell's sharp features appeared on the communication screen, her ceremonial battle armor gleaming even through the holographic transmission. "Admiral, you're certain this requires a full battle group? When something appears in our space with no record of its existence, Commander, I prefer caution." Theron forwarded all sensor data to her ship. 12 cruisers and 4 dreadnoughts should suffice. Standard formation, standard protocols. Simply stop it and determine what it is. Cyrell's expression showed confidence bordering on amusement. "One ship against 16? Admiral, we could accomplish this with a single cruiser. Nevertheless, I want overwhelming presence," Theron said firmly. And Commander, enable all recording systems. If this is a first contact situation, the Emperor will want complete documentation. As you command. Sirel offered the traditional salute, her forearms crossing over her chest in sequence. Battle Group Hammerfall will intercept within 2 hours. The transmission ended. Theron returned to the observation deck, watching the red marker on the long-range display. Something about this situation troubled him, beyond the obvious irregularity. The ship's behavior suggested purpose, not malfunction. It maintained perfect velocity and heading, as if it knew exactly where it was going and saw no reason to deviate or respond to hails. 2 hours felt like 10 cycles. When Battle Group Hammerfall finally appeared on sensors, Theron felt a surge of pride. 16 Imperial warships dropping out of faster-than-light travel in perfect formation was a sight that had made lesser species surrender without firing a shot. The dreadnoughts alone massed more than the unknown vessel by a factor of 50. Their weapons could reduce a small moon to debris. Sirel's voice came through on priority channel. "We have visual confirmation, Admiral. Transmitting now." The observation deck's main screen switched to an optical feed from the flagship's forward cameras. Theron stepped closer, studying the unknown vessel with intense focus. It was unlike anything in the Imperial database, yet strangely familiar in its basic configuration. A central cylindrical hull, with what appeared to be rotating sections, suggesting artificial gravity generation. Propulsion systems at the rear showed no visible exhaust, indicating some form of reactionless drive or highly efficient plasma recirculation. The hull was dark, almost black, with minimal external lighting. Strange markings covered its surface, symbols that meant nothing to Theron's trained eye. But what caught his attention most was the shape affixed to the ship's bow. A blue sphere with white swirls and brown-green continents. A world. The ship bore the image of a world. "Commander Sirel, document those markings," Theron said. "Especially the sphere symbol." "Already recorded, Admiral." Sirel's tactical display showed Battle Group Hammerfall, surrounding the unknown vessel, in a 3-dimensional formation that left no avenue of escape. "We're in position." Initiating final hail. Theron listened as Sirel delivered the standard interdiction message. "Unknown vessel. You are surrounded by Imperial military forces. Cut your engines immediately and prepare to be boarded. Failure to comply will result in forcible seizure of your vessel. This is your final warning." The unknown ship continued forward, unwavering. "No response," Sirel reported. "Recommend activation of tractor beams." Theron hesitated for only a moment. "Proceed. Disable their engines if they resist. But I want that ship intact." 4 of the cruisers activated their tractor beam projectors. Invisible fields of gravitational force that could seize a vessel and hold it immobile. The beams locked onto the unknown ship from multiple angles. For 3 seconds, nothing happened. Then the unknown vessel did something that made Theron's secondary heart stop entirely. It accelerated, not away from the tractor beams, but directly through them, as if the gravitational fields were meaningless. Alarms screamed across Battle Group Hammerfall's communication channels. "Impossible," Sirel shouted. "Nothing breaks through 4-point tractor lock." The unknown ship rotated on its axis with a grace that should have been impossible for its mass, presenting what Theron now recognized as weapons ports. They didn't glow with the familiar charge of plasma cannons or particle beams. They were dark, simple mechanical openings, all ships evasive. Sirel's order was cut short. The unknown vessel fired, but it didn't fire energy weapons. Theron watched in disbelief as solid projectiles launched from the ship at velocities that made his tactical computer scream warnings. Kinetic rounds, but moving at speeds that approached relativistic percentages. The Empire had abandoned such primitive weapons millennia ago. The first cruiser took a hit to its engine section. Not a devastating explosion, but a surgical strike that severed the connection between the power core and the drive systems. The cruiser went dark, tumbling in space. life support intact but propulsion gone. "Return fire," Cyril commanded. 12 ships opened fire simultaneously. Plasma bolts and particle beams converged on the unknown vessel from every angle. Enough firepower to vaporize a space station. The unknown ship simply wasn't there. It moved with impossible agility, its trajectory shifting in ways that violated every principle of momentum. Theron had learned in the Imperial Naval Academy. Shots that should have connected passed through empty space, as the vessel seemed to predict firing solutions before they were executed. Another kinetic round struck a dreadnought. This time, Theron saw the precision. The projectile hit exactly where the shield generator connected to the main power grid. The dreadnought's shields collapsed instantly, leaving it vulnerable, but otherwise undamaged. "They're not trying to destroy us," Theron whispered, realization dawning. "They're disabling us." A third shot took out the weapons array on another cruiser. A fourth disabled the navigation systems on a dreadnought. Each strike was perfectly placed, hitting critical systems while carefully avoiding crew quarters and life support. The unknown vessel wasn't fighting to kill. It was fighting to neutralize. And it was winning. Battlegroup Hammerfall's formation dissolved into chaos. Ships tried to scatter, to find range, to establish any kind of tactical advantage. The unknown vessel moved through them like a predator through a herd. Each movement economical and purposeful. Its weapons fired with mechanical regularity, each shot accounting for a disabled system, a crippled ship. Cyril's flagship took a hit to its main communications array. Her voice became broken and static-filled. "Admiral. Can't maintain. Requesting emergency." 6 minutes after the engagement began, it was over. Battlegroup Hammerfall floated in space, 16 ships reduced to helpless hulks, engines disabled, weapons offline, shields collapsed. A few injuries from impacts and sudden maneuvers, nothing more. The unknown vessel had been careful, surgical, almost gentle in its devastation. The unknown ship oriented itself back to its original heading and engaged its drive systems. It accelerated smoothly away from the debris field of disabled Imperial warships, resuming its course as if nothing had interrupted its journey. Theron stood frozen on the observation deck, his 4 arms hanging limply at his sides. In 3,000 years of Imperial expansion, nothing like this had ever been recorded. A single unknown vessel had defeated a full battle group without suffering a scratch, without firing a single lethal shot, and without ever acknowledging their communications. "Send priority alert to Imperial Command," Theron said, his voice barely above a whisper. "Code Crimson. Unknown hostile capability encountered. Species unidentified. Technology unclassified. Threat level." He paused, struggling to find the appropriate designation. "Threat level cannot be determined." The communications officer stared at him. "Sir, Code Crimson hasn't been issued in over 500 cycles. Issue it now," Theron commanded. "And add this to the report. Whatever that was, whoever built it, they've been watching us. They knew exactly where to hit us. They understood our tactics, our technology, our weaknesses. They've studied us." He looked at the distant point of light that represented the unknown vessel, now accelerating beyond sensor range. "And we know absolutely nothing about them." High Inquisitor Velis stood in the circular chamber at the heart of Imperial Intelligence Headquarters, surrounded by holographic displays that filled the air with light and data. Each display showed a different encounter, a different sector, a different group of Imperial ships left disabled and drifting. Her 6 eyes tracked multiple screens simultaneously, a capability that had earned her species the role of intelligence analysts throughout the Empire. 9 encounters, 9 defeats, 9 identical patterns. "Play sequence 4 again," she commanded. Slow motion. Tactical overlay. The hologram expanded, showing a border patrol of 6 Imperial destroyers encountering an unknown vessel in the Outer Reach sector. The ship's design differed from the one that had disabled Battlegroup Hammerfall. But the symbol was identical, that blue sphere with continental markings. The tactical computer highlighted the engagement progression in color-coded timestamps. Velis watched as the Imperial ships attempted standard interdiction. She watched as the unknown vessel, with almost casual efficiency, disabled every ship within 4 minutes. She watched as it continued on its way, leaving no wreckage, no bodies, only humiliated survivors and destroyed equipment. Computer. Analyze firing patterns across all 9 encounters. Look for consistency in weapon selection and target prioritization. The holographic display shifted, overlaying data from all incidents. Lines of probability appeared, connecting target points across different ships and different battles. The pattern was undeniable. Shields first, Velis muttered, her primary eyes tracking the data while her secondary eyes monitored incoming reports. Always shields, then engines, then weapons, then communications. The same sequence, every time. Her assistant, a young Calvari officer named Breston, approached with a data tablet. High Inquisitor, the Xenotechnology Division has completed their analysis of the weapon signatures. Report. The weapons are kinetic projectiles, ma'am. Solid matter accelerated to approximately 30% of light speed. Breston's crest flattened in confusion, a gesture that indicated his species found something disturbing. The technology is primitive. We abandoned kinetic weapons 3,000 cycles ago as inefficient, and yet they defeated Battlegroup Hammerfall in 6 minutes. Velis turned her attention to a different display, one showing energy signatures from recovered Imperial shield generators. Our shields are designed to deflect energy weapons, plasma, particles, directed radiation. They create a magnetic field that redirects charged particles around the ship. Yes, ma'am. Standard Imperial defensive technology. But kinetic projectiles have no charge, Velis continued. They're just mass, moving very fast. Our shields barely slow them down. She felt something cold settle in her central chest. They knew. They specifically chose weapons that bypass our primary defense. Breston's crest rose slightly. You're suggesting they studied our technology before engaging? I'm not suggesting it, officer. I'm stating it as fact. Velis pulled up another display, this one showing communication logs. Look at this. Battlegroup Hammerfall cycled through 47 different hailing frequencies. Standard protocol. When facing an unknown vessel. Yes, ma'am. We cover every registered language and communication method. And this unknown ship ignored all of them. Velis highlighted specific timestamps. But notice this. In 3 of the 9 encounters, when Imperial forces activated their emergency quantum communication systems, the unknown vessels immediately deployed jamming fields. Not before. Only when we used quantum communications. Breston leaned closer to the display. They were monitoring our communications, waiting to see what technologies we would use. Exactly. Velis expanded the tactical map to show all 9 encounter locations. Now look at the distribution. These incidents span 12 sectors across the entire frontier. These aren't random encounters. This is systematic observation. The young officer stared at the map, his 4 arms crossing in unconscious mimicry of defensive posture. How many ships are we dealing with, High Inquisitor? That's the question that keeps me from meditation, Velis admitted. She pulled up comparative analysis of the vessel configurations. Look at the differences. This one has rotating sections for gravity generation. This one appears to use acceleration-based gravity. This vessel has external sensor arrays, while this one has them recessed into the hull. These aren't the same ship appearing in multiple locations. Multiple ship classes, Breston said slowly. Which means this isn't one rogue vessel or a single pirate crew with stolen technology, Velis finished. This is an organized fleet from an organized civilization. They have infrastructure, resources, manufacturing capability. They built these ships deliberately, designed them specifically to counter our technology. and deployed them across our entire frontier. She walked to the chamber's center, where a massive holographic projector displayed the known galaxy. Hundreds of thousands of stars glittered in the display, with Imperial territory marked in red. The 9 encounter locations appeared as pulsing white markers at the borders. Computer, analyze unknown vessel trajectories. Extrapolate origin points. The computer processed for several seconds, then drew lines backward from each encounter location. The lines converged roughly in a region of space beyond Imperial borders, in an area marked as unexplored on their charts. That region has no recorded spacefaring civilizations, Breston said. We surveyed it 800 cycles ago. Nothing but primitive life forms and pre-industrial societies. 800 cycles is a long time, officer. Velis studied the convergence point. Civilizations rise faster than we expect sometimes. The chamber doors opened with a pneumatic hiss. Velis turned to see Emperor Carveth himself enter, accompanied by his war council. She immediately performed the traditional obeisance, all 6 eyes closing briefly in respect. Rise, High Inquisitor, the Emperor commanded. His voice carried the harmonic undertones that marked him as a male of the Imperial bloodline. I've read your preliminary reports. Tell me plainly, what are we facing? Velis straightened, meeting the Emperor's gaze with her primary eyes, while her secondary eyes continued monitoring the displays. Your Majesty, we are facing an unknown spacefaring species with technology that is simultaneously primitive and sophisticated. They use kinetic weapons we abandoned millennia ago, but they deploy them with precision we cannot match. Their vessels are smaller than our dreadnoughts, but more maneuverable than our fighters. And most concerning, they have studied us extensively while remaining completely unknown to us. Grand Marshal Torvan, the Empire's supreme military commander, stepped forward. His species was warrior caste, bred for combat over thousands of generations. You're telling the Emperor that we're at a disadvantage against ships that use primitive weapons? I'm telling the Emperor that we're at a disadvantage against an enemy who knows everything about us while we know nothing about them, Velis corrected. Primitive weapons can be devastatingly effective if your enemy's defenses aren't designed to stop them. These vessels don't use energy weapons because energy weapons wouldn't work as well against their own defenses. They're built on an entirely different technological paradigm. She manipulated the holographic display, showing comparative analyses. Our weapons and defenses evolved together over 3,000 years. We refined energy weapons because we refined energy shields. We created better shields to stop better weapons. It's an arms race with ourselves. And these unknowns didn't participate in that race, the Emperor said slowly. They developed along a different path. Yes, Your Majesty. And when 2 different technological paths meet, neither side has the advantages they're used to. Velis brought up footage from the battle group Hammerfall engagement. Watch this carefully. When our ships fire, there's a charge-up period. 0.3 seconds for plasma cannons. 0.5 seconds for particle beams. The weapons must build up energy before firing. The War Council watched as the hologram played out the battle. Now watch the unknown vessel's weapons. Velis highlighted the mechanical ports on the strange ship. No charge-up. No energy build-up. The projectiles are already at full velocity the instant they leave the barrel. Our tactical computers are designed to predict firing solutions based on energy signatures. These weapons have no signature until they fire. Grand Marshal Torvan's crest was fully extended now, a sign of agitation. You're saying our entire fleet is vulnerable to this technology. I'm saying our entire fleet is designed to fight enemies who fight like we do, Velis clarified. These unknowns don't fight like we do. They fight like they evolved in an entirely different strategic environment. The Emperor circled the holographic display slowly, his long robes trailing behind him. What do you recommend, High Inquisitor? 3 options, Your Majesty. First, attempt peaceful contact. These vessels have not killed anyone. Every engagement has been non-lethal, despite their obvious capability to destroy our ships. This suggests they don't want war. Or it suggests they're toying with us, Torvan growled. Second option, Velis continued. Avoid them entirely. We mark the regions where they've been encountered as restricted space and maintain distance until we learn more. Unacceptable, the Emperor said immediately. The Empire does not retreat from its own borders. Third option, Velis concluded. We deploy overwhelming force. Not to destroy them, but to capture one vessel intact. We study their technology, learn their capabilities, and determine who they are and where they come from. The Emperor looked at his war council. Marshal Torvan, what would you need to accomplish this? Torvan didn't hesitate. The Crimson Fleet, Your Majesty. 300 capital ships, our finest commanders, our best technology. If these unknowns appear again, we'll have sufficient force to contain them regardless of their tactical advantages. And if they prove to be more capable than we estimate? The Emperor asked. Then 300 ships will give us time to learn, even if we lose some in the process. Torvan's forearms crossed in determination. But I doubt it will come to that. They've only faced small groups so far. A full fleet deployment is a different matter entirely. The Emperor was silent for a long moment, his gaze distant. Finally, he spoke. Deploy the Crimson Fleet to the frontier. But Marshal Torvan, your primary objective is not destruction. It's understanding. Disable and capture if possible. Destroy only if necessary. But above all, learn what they are. As you command, Your Majesty. The Emperor turned back to Velis. High Inquisitor, dedicate all resources to identifying this species. Search historical records, contact our allies in other empires, investigate that convergence point you identified. I want answers. Yes, Your Majesty. As the Emperor and his war council departed, Velis returned her attention to the holographic displays. Her secondary eyes caught something she hadn't noticed before, a detail in the enhanced imaging from one of the encounters. Computer, enhance Sector 7. Grid coordinates 447. The image expanded, showing the hull of one of the unknown vessels in extreme detail. There, barely visible among the strange symbols, was something that made Velis's central chest tighten with the emotion she rarely felt. Fear. Letters. Not symbols or pictographs, but actual phonetic letters from an alphabet. They were small, almost insignificant, but the computer could translate them through linguistic analysis. United Earth Exploration Service. Earth. The species called their homeworld Earth. And that blue sphere on their hulls wasn't just decoration, it was their planet. They carried an image of their homeworld on every vessel. Velis pulled up the convergence point analysis again, then overlaid it with deep space survey data from 800 cycles ago. She searched for any world matching that description: blue, with white atmospheric patterns and continental landmasses. The computer found it. A planet in the unexplored region, catalogued but never visited. The survey had noted it as having primitive life forms. Nothing more. The planet orbited a yellow dwarf star, third from the Sun in its system. Computer, calculate travel time from that world to our frontier at standard Imperial FTL speeds. The answer appeared: 420 cycles. Now calculate travel time at double standard FTL speeds. 210 cycles. Velis felt her hearts beating rapidly. If this species had developed faster than light travel, even marginally better than Imperial standard, they could have reached the frontier in the time since the last survey. And if they'd been traveling, observing, studying the Empire for that long without being detected, she opened a priority channel to the Emperor's private office. Your Majesty, I have preliminary findings. The species calls themselves human, and their homeworld, Earth. Based on survey data, they've potentially been observing us for over 200 cycles. The Emperor's response was immediate. Over 200 cycles? How did we not detect them? Because we weren't looking, Your Majesty. We surveyed their world 800 cycles ago, found nothing of interest, and never returned. They could have developed FTL travel any time after that. They've had centuries to study us without interference. There was a long silence. Then, High Inquisitor, this changes everything. If they've been watching us that long, they know more about us than some of our own allies. The Crimson Fleet's deployment just became far more complicated. Yes, Your Majesty. We're not facing a new species making first contact. We're facing a species that's already completed their study of us. They know exactly what they're doing. Velis looked at the image of Earth displayed on her screen. A blue world, beautiful and seemingly fragile. But from that world had come ships that defeated Imperial battle groups with almost casual ease. Computer, she said quietly. Begin deep analysis of human tactical patterns. I want to know how they think, how they fight, and what they want. And I want to know it before the Crimson Fleet encounters them. The computer acknowledged her command and began processing terabytes of combat data. Velis settled in for a long night of analysis. Somewhere out in the darkness of space, ships from Earth were traveling, exploring, and apparently defending themselves very effectively. The Empire was about to learn a lesson it hadn't faced in 3,000 years. That being the most powerful civilization in known space didn't mean being the only one capable of challenging that power. Sanctuary 9 had served as a neutral trading post at the edge of Imperial space for over 500 cycles. The station orbited a barren moon in a system claimed by no government, accessible to all species. Its massive rotating rings provided artificial gravity for dozens of different species requirements, and its markets sold everything from common minerals to rare genetic treatments. It was a place where empires met independence, where information flowed as freely as currency, and where the usual rules of territorial sovereignty didn't apply. Station Master Kavan had seen many unusual things dock at his facility over the decades. Ships from species barely capable of FTL travel, ancient vessels held together by determination and improvised repairs, even the occasional Imperial dreadnought whose captain wanted to purchase goods without filling out official requisition forms. But when his sensors registered the approaching vessel, he felt his third eye dilate with surprise. The ship matched the descriptions in the urgent bulletins transmitted throughout the region. Dark hull, cylindrical configuration, that distinctive blue sphere symbol on its bow. One of the unknown vessels that had been systematically humiliating Imperial forces across the frontier, and it was requesting permission to dock. "This is Station Master Kavan to approaching vessel," he transmitted, his voice remarkably steady considering his anxiety. "You are cleared for docking at Port 17, Upper Ring. Please maintain minimal velocity and follow the guidance beacons." The response came immediately, and Kavan was shocked to hear it in perfect Imperial Standard language. "Sanctuary 9. This is the exploration vessel, Pathfinder. Thank you for the clearance. We appreciate your hospitality." The voice was pleasant, melodic, with subtle tonal variations that suggested sophisticated vocal capabilities. But more importantly, it spoke Imperial Standard fluently, without hesitation or translation delay. Kavan watched on external cameras as the Pathfinder approached the docking port with textbook precision. The ship was smaller than he'd expected from the combat reports, perhaps 300 meters long, with none of the aggressive design aesthetics typical of warships. It looked more like an exploration vessel than a battleship, which made its reported combat performance all the more remarkable. The docking clamps engaged with a satisfying clunk. Kavan checked his atmospheric sensors, ensuring the docking port matched the environmental requirements in the ship's automated transmission. Nitrogen-oxygen atmosphere, standard gravity, temperature comfortable for most carbon-based species. Nothing unusual. Docking complete, Pathfinder. Welcome to Sanctuary 9. Will you be requiring refueling, supplies, or repair services? Negative on refueling and repairs, Station Master. We would like to purchase some local food items if possible, for our cultural database. Also, we're hoping to establish formal diplomatic contact with the Calvary Empire. Is there a protocol for that? Kavan's third eye dilated again. You want to establish diplomatic contact? After. That is, following the recent incidents? You mean after your military tried to capture our ships and we defended ourselves? The voice from Pathfinder sounded almost amused. Yes. After that. We've been trying to establish peaceful contact for months. Your military keeps shooting first, and asking questions, never. Before Kavin could formulate a response, his sensors detected the ship's airlock opening. He switched his external cameras to the docking port entrance and watched as beings emerged from the Pathfinder. Humans. He was seeing humans for the first time. There were 5 of them, walking upright on 2 legs in a manner similar to several other bipedal species in the galaxy. They wore simple clothing in various colors, not armor or environmental suits, suggesting they found the station's atmosphere comfortable. Their skin tones varied from pale cream to deep brown, and they had hair in different colors and styles atop their heads. They looked remarkably ordinary. Nothing about their appearance suggested they were the tactical geniuses who had been defeating Imperial forces. The one in front, a female with dark brown skin and hair bound in a complex pattern of braids, approached the station's greeting area. She smiled, a facial expression that Kavin's cultural database identified as friendly among many species. "Station Master Kavin?" she asked, looking directly at the security camera. "Granted," Kavin said, triggering the interior doors. "Welcome to Sanctuary 9, Captain Park." He met them in the main reception hall, a space designed to accommodate various species' sizes and mobility requirements. Captain Park approached with her hand extended, a gesture Kavin recognized as a greeting from his database. He carefully shook her hand, noting the warmth of her skin and the firmness of her grip. "Thank you for receiving us," Elena said. "I apologize if our arrival causes any complications. We understand the Empire has been looking for us." I'm looking for you might be an understatement, Captain." Kavin gestured toward his office. "Perhaps we should speak privately?" Elena nodded and followed him, leaving her crew to explore the station's market areas. Once inside his office, she settled into a chair designed for bipedal species and looked at him with eyes that seemed to hold both warmth and sharp intelligence. "Station Master. My species, humanity, has been exploring this region of space for about 8 of our years. We've launched 12 exploration vessels from Earth, each traveling in different directions to meet whatever civilizations exist out here." Elena spoke clearly, choosing her words carefully. "We come in peace. We want to establish trade relationships, cultural exchanges, and peaceful coexistence with everyone we meet." "Then why have you been attacking Imperial ships?" Kavin asked bluntly. "We haven't attacked anyone," Elena replied with equal directness. "We've defended ourselves when your military tried to capture us. Every encounter followed the same pattern. We enter a system. They surround us with overwhelming force. They demand our surrender, and we decline to be taken prisoner. We've been very careful not to kill anyone. Our weapons are designed for precision strikes against systems, not crew." Kavin accessed his console, pulling up reports from the various encounters. Battle Group Hammerfall. 12 cruisers and 4 dreadnoughts. Disabled in 6 minutes. "They activated tractor beams and tried to seize our ship by force," Elena said. "We removed their capability to do that. We didn't kill anyone because we don't want to kill anyone. We're explorers, not conquerors. The Empire doesn't see a distinction between defending yourself very effectively and being hostile. Then the Empire needs better perspective." Elena leaned forward slightly. "Station Master, let me be very clear. We don't want conflict with the Calvari Empire. We don't want their territory, their resources, or their submission. We simply want to be left alone, to explore in peace. But if they keep trying to capture us, we'll keep defending ourselves." "You make it sound simple, but the Empire has never encountered a species that could defeat their military forces so easily. You've frightened them." "Good." Elena's expression became serious. "Maybe fear will motivate them to talk instead of shoot. That's why we're here. On your neutral station. We're hoping you can help us establish proper diplomatic channels." Kavin considered this carefully. He'd been station master for 40 cycles, and in that time, he'd facilitated dozens of first contact situations between various species, but none had quite like this, where one side had already demonstrated overwhelming military superiority, but still wanted peace. "I can contact the Empire on your behalf," he said slowly. "But I cannot guarantee their response. You've humiliated their military forces. Pride is a significant factor in imperial politics." "We understand pride," Elena said. "But we also understand necessity. They can keep sending ships to capture us and keep losing. Or they can talk to us and everyone benefits. It's not complicated math." I'll send the message immediately. Thank you, Station Master." Elena stood and offered her hand again. "We'll wait at the station. In the meantime, my crew would like to experience your market. We have items to trade, if you're interested, art from Earth, data files containing our culture and history, perhaps some of our food items. You're willing to trade cultural information?" "Of course. That's part of why we're out here. To share and learn." Elena smiled again. "We're not trying to be mysterious, Station Master. We're just trying to be neighbors." After Elena left, Caven composed a priority message to Imperial Command. He included everything the humans' stated intentions, their appearance, their willingness to establish diplomatic relations. He sent it through the fastest quantum communication channels available and settled in to wait. The response came within 3 hours, faster than he'd expected. Grand Marshal Torvan himself would be arriving within the day, along with a diplomatic escort that turned out to be 50 Imperial warships. Caven immediately contacted Captain Park, finding her and her crew in one of the station's restaurants, attempting to eat a Calvari dish called spiced mushroom clusters, with evident curiosity and some difficulty with the chopstick-like utensils. "Captain Park, the Empire is sending representatives to meet with you, but they're bringing 50 warships as an escort." Elena set down her utensils carefully. 50 ships for a diplomatic meeting? The Empire likes to make statements. "So do we, Station Master." Elena pulled out a small communication device. "Pathfinder, this is Park. Contact the other exploration vessels in range. I think we're about to have a serious conversation." Within 6 hours, 2 more human exploration ships had arrived at Sanctuary 9, the Meridian, and the Horizon. Each bore the same blue sphere symbol, and each docked peacefully at the station without incident. When Grand Marshal Torvan's fleet arrived, the sight was intimidating. 50 Imperial warships surrounding the station in a perfect 3-dimensional formation. Weapons powered, but not locked on target. The Grand Marshal himself came aboard with an escort of 20 armed soldiers, all in ceremonial armor that gleamed under the station's lighting. Caven had arranged the meeting in the station's largest neutral hall, a space designed for multi-species negotiations. Captain Elena Park stood waiting with 2 other human captains, a tall male with pale skin named Richard Olson from the Meridian, and a shorter female with East Asian features named Keiko Tanaka from the Horizon. Grand Marshal Torvan entered with the deliberate confidence of someone accustomed to being the most dangerous individual in any room. He was a head taller than Elena, his 4 arms positioned in a stance that suggested both readiness and authority. His species crest was fully extended, a display meant to intimidate. Elena didn't appear intimidated. "Grand Marshal Torvan," she said, offering her hand. "Thank you for agreeing to meet with us." Torvan looked at her extended hand but didn't take it. "You are the humans who have been attacking Imperial forces. We're the humans who have been defending ourselves against Imperial forces trying to capture us," Elena corrected calmly. "There's a difference. You destroyed Battle Group Hammerfall. We disabled Battle Group Hammerfall without killing anyone," Elena said. "And only after they activated tractor beams and tried to seize our ship by force. Self-defense is not aggression, Grand Marshal." Torvan's crest flattened slightly, a sign of consideration. "Where is your empire? Your fleet? How many ships do you have?" "We don't have an empire," Captain Olson said. "Earth sent 12 exploration vessels into space on different vectors. Each ship operates independently, with an expected mission duration of 50 years. We're explorers, Grand Marshal. Not invaders. The Grand Marshal stared at them. 12 ships? You attacked our battle groups with only 12 ships total? We didn't attack anyone, Captain Tanaka said patiently. We've defended ourselves exactly 12 times across various sectors when your military attempted to capture us. 12 ships, 12 encounters. We're not hiding a secret fleet. Torvan walked slowly around the three human captains, studying them as one might study potential threats. You expect me to believe that 12 exploration vessels have defeated Imperial military forces in every engagement? You can believe what you want, Grand Marshal, Elena said. But yes, that's exactly what happened. We studied your technology before entering your space. We observed your tactics, your weapons, your defensive systems. We designed our ships specifically to defend against them if necessary, while we hoped it wouldn't be necessary. She paused. We were disappointed. You were disappointed? Torvan's voice held dangerous undertones. We hoped to make friends, Grand Marshal. Instead, we had to defend ourselves from people who tried to capture us, without ever attempting peaceful communication. Yes, we're disappointed. Friends? Torvan's crest rose again. We demonstrate defensive capability and speak of peaceful coexistence. Elena corrected. We could have destroyed every ship we encountered, Grand Marshal. We have weapons capable of that. We chose not to kill anyone, because killing is not our objective. Understanding is our objective. Cooperation is our objective. But we will not be captured, imprisoned, or forced into submission by anyone, no matter how large their empire. The words hung in the air between them. Kavan, watching from the side, recognized this as the critical moment, when pride and pragmatism would battle for dominance in Torvan's decision-making. The Empire does not negotiate with those who refuse to submit to its authority, Torvan said finally. Then the Empire will continue to lose ships every time it tries to capture us. Elena replied evenly. We're offering you an alternative, Grand Marshal. Diplomatic relations, cultural exchange, mutual trade agreements, respect for territorial boundaries. All we ask in return is to be left alone to explore in peace. If you can't accept those terms, then we'll continue defending ourselves every time you attack us. Your choice. Torvan's forearms crossed in sequence, a gesture Kavan recognized as internal conflict. The Grand Marshal had been ordered to establish contact, to learn about these humans, to determine if they posed a threat or an opportunity. But his pride, his military training, his species' entire cultural heritage pushed him toward demanding submission. I need to consult with the Emperor, Torvan said finally. You will remain at this station until I return. We'll remain here because Station Master Kavan has been kind enough to let us use his facility, Elena said. Not because you ordered us to. That's an important distinction, Grand Marshal. Torvan's crest flattened completely, a sign of either deep respect or barely controlled anger. We're explorers who have traveled thousands of light years from home to see what's out here, Elena replied. Brave and foolish might both apply. But we're also tired of being shot at when we've done nothing wrong. But understand this, we want peace. But we won't surrender our freedom to get it. The Grand Marshal departed with his escort, returning to his flagship. The 50 Imperial warships remained in position around the station, a silent reminder of the Empire's power. Elena sat down heavily in one of the chairs, her calm exterior cracking slightly. Did I just destroy any chance of peace by being too confrontational? Maybe, Captain Olsen admitted. But if we show weakness now, they'll never respect us. The Emperor will decide, Kavan said quietly. Torvan is proud, but he's not stupid. He knows his fleet cannot capture your ships without unacceptable losses. The question is whether the Emperor's pragmatism can overcome the Empire's pride. Elena looked at the blue sphere symbol on her uniform, the image of Earth, their home. Impossibly distant and yet always present. We came so far to make friends, she said softly. I really hope we don't have to keep fighting. Outside the station, the Imperial fleet maintained their positions. Inside the Pathfinder, Meridian, and Horizon, human crews waited with weapons, powered, and defensive systems ready. And somewhere in Imperial space, an Emperor prepared to make a decision that would determine whether humanity's first contact with galactic civilization would end in partnership or continued conflict. The galaxy held its breath. Grand Marshal Torvan stood on the bridge of his flagship Eternal Dominance, looking at the tactical display with growing frustration. 3 human ships orbited Sanctuary 9, surrounded by 50 of the Empire's finest warships. By every logical calculation, his force should be overwhelming. 50 against 3 should not even qualify as a battle, it should be a capture operation. But the reports from the previous encounters kept playing through his mind. Battle Group Hammerfall. Disabled in 6 minutes. 3 destroyer squadrons. Neutralized in 4 minutes each. A dreadnought patrol. Left drifting in under 7 minutes. Every single engagement showed the same pattern. Imperial forces vastly outnumbering the humans. Imperial forces losing quickly and completely. The quantum communication system chimed, indicating an incoming priority message from the Emperor himself. Torvan straightened his ceremonial armor and activated the holographic display. Emperor Karveth appeared in perfect detail, his expression grave. Marshal Torvan, High Inquisitor Velis has briefed me on the human capabilities. I need your honest assessment. Can the Crimson Fleet defeat these humans if they choose to fight? Torvan wanted to answer with absolute confidence. His pride demanded it. His training insisted that 300 Imperial warships could defeat any enemy. But his duty required honesty. Your Majesty, I believe we could overwhelm them through sheer numbers. But the cost would be significant. These humans have demonstrated tactical superiority in every engagement. Their weapons bypass our shields, their jamming blinds our targeting systems, and their ships move with precision we cannot match. If the 3 vessels at Sanctuary 9 chose to fight, we would win eventually. But I estimate we would lose at least 15 ships in the process. Possibly more. The Emperor was silent for a long moment. 15 ships to defeat 3? Yes, Your Majesty. And those are just the 3 ships here. Captain Park claimed there are 12 human vessels total scattered across our frontier. If they coordinate their efforts, the Empire could face casualties we haven't seen in 500 cycles. The Emperor finished. And all. Against a species that claims they only want to explore peacefully. They have demonstrated restraint, Your Majesty. Every encounter could have resulted in destroyed ships and thousands of casualties. Instead, the humans disabled our vessels carefully, minimizing harm to crews. This suggests they are being truthful about their peaceful intentions. Or it suggests they're showing mercy to an inferior opponent, the Emperor said darkly. Which is perhaps more insulting than if they had simply destroyed our forces. Your Majesty, I do not believe they see us as inferior. I believe they see us as potentially dangerous, and have prepared accordingly. Their captain spoke of studying our technology, of designing their defenses specifically against our capabilities. This is not the action of primitives or fools. This is the action of a cautious, intelligent species that prepared for the worst while hoping for the best. The Emperor leaned forward in his throne. What do you recommend, Marshal? I recommend we accept their offer of diplomatic relations, Your Majesty. Not because we cannot defeat them, we likely can, with sufficient losses, but because defeating them gains us nothing while allying with them could gain us much. They have technology we don't understand, tactics we don't anticipate, and apparently no hostile intentions beyond self-defense. We should be learning from them, not fighting them. The War Council will say we show weakness by negotiating after defeat. The War Council isn't out here looking at 3 ships that could cripple a significant portion of this fleet, Your Majesty. I am. And I am telling you that fighting these humans serves no purpose except pride. Pride is important, but survival is more important. The Emperor's expression shifted, showing something that might have been respect. Very well, Marshal. Return to the station. Inform Captain Park that the Empire accepts preliminary diplomatic discussions, but make it clear that we are not surrendering, merely acknowledging mutual interests in peaceful coexistence. Yes, Your Majesty. And if they reject our terms, then you will let them leave in peace. The Empire will mark their known travel routes as diplomatic zones and avoid hostile contact. If we cannot be friends, we will at least not be enemies. Not yet. The transmission ended. Torvan stared at the tactical display for several more minutes, then made his decision. Prepare my shuttle. I'm returning to the station. And power down all weapons. We're not going to give them any excuse to feel threatened. When Torvan entered the neutral hall again, he found Captain Elena Park exactly where he'd left her, sitting calmly at the negotiation table with her fellow captains flanking her. She stood as he approached, offering that strange hand gesture greeting again. This time, Torvan took her hand and shook it. Captain Park, the Emperor has authorized me to begin preliminary diplomatic discussions with humanity. The Empire acknowledges your right to exist peacefully within this region of space, and proposes establishment of formal communication channels to prevent future misunderstandings. Elena's face showed relief, that facial expression humans use to indicate positive emotions. Thank you, Grand Marshal. That's all we've wanted from the beginning. Open communication, mutual respect, and peaceful coexistence. However, Torvan continued, the Empire requires certain assurances. We need to know the location of your homeworld, the extent of your territory, and confirmation of your military capabilities. The Emperor will not proceed with negotiations while facing an unknown number of potential threats. That's reasonable, Elena said. She pulled out a small data device and placed it on the table. This contains coordinates for Earth, our homeworld. It's approximately 12,000 light-years from here, in a region you call the Outer Spiral. We have one planet, no territory beyond our own star system, and as I've told you, 12 exploration vessels. That's our complete military capability, 12 ships designed for exploration and self-defense. Torvan stared at the data device. You're giving us the location of your homeworld? Just like that? Why wouldn't we? We're not trying to hide. We're trying to make friends. You want to know where Earth is? Here's the coordinates. You want to visit? We'll welcome delegations. You want to establish trade? We'll negotiate fairly. This isn't complicated, Grand Marshal. And if the Empire decided to invade Earth? Elena's expression became serious. Then you'd find 12 very angry exploration ships returning home to defend it. And you'd discover that these vessels you've encountered were designed for exploration and mild self-defense. Our actual military ships are something different. But that's not going to happen, because the Empire isn't stupid enough to start a war over nothing when they could have a peaceful neighbor instead. Torvan's crest rose in what might have been admiration. You speak very boldly for someone whose entire species could be found and threatened. We speak honestly because lying serves no purpose. Yes, if your entire empire decided to destroy Earth, you probably could. You have millions of ships, billions of citizens, resources we can't match. But it would cost you. It would cost you significantly. And at the end, you'd have gained nothing except a dead planet and a lot of destroyed ships. Or you could have friends, trading partners, and allies who know things you don't know and can do things you can't do. Which sounds more valuable to you? Captain Olson spoke up. Grand Marshal, let me share something from human history. About 400 years ago, Earth was divided into nearly 200 separate nations. We fought wars constantly. We nearly destroyed ourselves 3 times, with weapons that could have made our planet uninhabitable. We were stupid, violent, and self-destructive. And yet you survived, Torvan observed. We survived because we learned, Captain Tanaka continued. We learned that cooperation achieves more than conflict. We learned that different cultures can coexist and benefit from their differences. We learned that the vast universe is big enough for everyone to find their place without taking someone else's place. It took us a long time to learn those lessons, Grand Marshal, and we paid a terrible price for that education. So when we finally reached the stars, Elena concluded, we promised ourselves we wouldn't make the same mistakes out here that we made on Earth. We would approach every species we met with open hands instead of closed fists. We would defend ourselves if necessary. But we would always try for peace first. Torvan sat down across from them, a gesture that indicated willingness to negotiate on equal terms. Your species has an interesting philosophy, Captain Park. But philosophy doesn't always survive contact with reality. The galaxy is not a peaceful place. We know. We've been observing for years before we ever entered your space. We've seen conflicts, wars, territorial disputes. We've watched the Empire expand through force and intimidation. We've studied how you negotiate from positions of strength and expect submission from smaller species. Elena leaned forward. Elena. 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 But we're not a smaller species, Grand Marshal. We're different. And different doesn't mean weaker. You've made that point very effectively. We didn't want to make that point. We wanted to make friends. But when your people kept trying to capture us, we had to demonstrate why that was a bad idea. We don't enjoy defeating your military forces, Grand Marshal. It doesn't make us happy or proud. It makes us sad because it represents a failure of communication. Torvan found himself in unfamiliar territory. He'd negotiated with dozens of species in his career, always from a position of overwhelming imperial superiority. Those negotiations typically involved the other species agreeing to imperial terms while receiving minor concessions in return. But these humans negotiated as equals, offering transparency while expecting nothing except respect in return. It was refreshing in a way he hadn't expected. Very well, Captain Park. I will recommend to the Emperor that we proceed with formal, diplomatic relations. We will establish an embassy at a mutually agreed location, exchange cultural representatives, and negotiate trade agreements. In return, the Empire requests that your exploration vessels notify Imperial border stations when entering our space and follow standard traffic protocols. We can agree to that. We have no problem following reasonable regulations, as long as they don't involve surrendering or being captured. And the Empire will officially acknowledge human sovereignty over your home system and your exploration vessels' right to travel freely through unclaimed space. That's very generous, Grand Marshal. Thank you. Torvan stood, and the 3 human captains stood with him. I must return to Imperial space and make my formal report. But Captain Park, before I leave, I have a question. Of course, your ships are designed for exploration, you say. But they defeated our military forces with ease. What would your actual military ships be capable of? And one. Elena smiled. That expression that showed teeth in what should have been threatening but somehow wasn't. Grand Marshal, let's hope you never need to find out. Our military stays home, protecting Earth. You're dealing with our peaceful explorers. I think that tells you everything you need to know about why we prefer diplomacy. Torvan felt his secondary heart accelerate, that physiological response his species had to genuine uncertainty. These humans, with their strange technology and stranger philosophy, had just politely informed him that what they'd shown so far was their restrained, peaceful side. I believe I understand, Captain Park. Safe travels to you and your crews. As Torvan returned to his flagship, he composed his report to the Emperor. The humans were unlike any species the Empire had encountered. They combined advanced technology with peaceful intentions, military capability with diplomatic preference, and strategic thinking with genuine openness. They were simultaneously threatening and welcoming, powerful and humble. They were, Torvan realized, Exactly the kind of neighbors the Empire needed if it wanted to survive the challenges ahead. The Crimson Fleet departed Sanctuary 9 inches perfect formation, leaving the 3 human vessels orbiting the station peacefully. As they jumped to faster-than-light travel, Torvan allowed himself a moment of satisfaction. First contact could have been a disaster. Instead, it had become an opportunity. The Empire was about to learn a great deal from humanity. And secretly, Torvan suspected humanity had a great deal to learn from the Empire as well. Perhaps this was what genuine diplomatic relations looked like, not one side dominating the other, but both sides recognizing mutual value. It was a novel concept for the Calvari Empire. But as Grand Marshal Torvan reviewed the combat data one more time, studying how 3 human ships had defeated every challenge the Empire presented, he thought perhaps novel concepts were exactly what the Empire needed. The galaxy was larger than they'd imagined, and humanity had just proven that size wasn't everything. The Grand Assembly Hall on Vex Prime had witnessed many historic moments in the 3,000 years of Imperial history. Treaties had been signed here, wars declared here, emperors crowned here. But Emperor Carveth doubted the chamber had ever held an announcement quite like the one he was about to make. 6 months had passed since Grand Marshal Torvan's encounter with the humans at Sanctuary 9. 6 months of careful negotiations, cultural exchanges, and gradual understanding between 2 civilizations that approached existence from fundamentally different perspectives. Now, the Emperor stood before the assembled representatives of every imperial province, every allied species, and every major political faction, ready to make formal what had been provisional. Members of the Grand Assembly, Carveth began, his voice amplified through the chamber's acoustic systems. Today marks a new chapter in imperial history. I am pleased to announce the establishment of formal diplomatic relations between the Calvari Empire and humanity of the planet Earth. The chamber erupted in mixed reactions. Some representatives offered the traditional gesture of approval, crossing their arms in sequence. Others remained silent, their body language indicating skepticism or concern. A few openly expressed dissent through their species' particular methods of showing disagreement. Carveth raised his primary hand for silence. I understand this decision concerns many of you. We have all heard the reports of human vessels defeating our military forces. We have all wondered whether these humans represent a threat to imperial security. That is why I have asked High Inquisitor Velis to present her complete analysis of humanity, what she calls the human paradigm. After hearing her findings, you will understand why this diplomatic relationship serves the Empire's best interests. High Inquisitor Velis stepped forward, her 6 eyes tracking different sections of the assembly simultaneously. Multiple holographic displays activated around her, showing images, data, and analysis compiled over 6 months of intensive study. Representatives of the Empire, Velis began. I have spent the past 6 months studying humanity with every resource at my disposal. I have analyzed their history, their technology, their culture, and their biology. What I discovered challenges many of our assumptions about how spacefaring civilizations develop. The first hologram displayed an image of Earth, that blue sphere with white clouds and green-brown continents. It rotated slowly, looking deceptively peaceful. Earth is what xenobiologists classify as a death world. Its gravity is 1.2 times imperial standard. Its atmosphere is highly reactive. Oxygen concentrations high enough to support rapid combustion. Its weather systems are violent and unpredictable, capable of producing winds that exceed 200 kilometers per hour. Its tectonic plates are active, causing earthquakes and volcanic eruptions regularly, and perhaps most significantly, it hosts an ecosystem filled with apex predators that evolved alongside humanity. The hologram shifted to show various Earth animals. A large feline with prominent teeth, a massive reptile with powerful jaws, a bear standing on its rear legs, easily twice the size of an average human. Humans evolved as prey animals, Velis continued. Their ancestors were hunted by creatures larger, stronger, and faster than themselves. Humanity survived not through superior strength, but through superior intelligence, and one particular evolutionary advantage: endurance. A new image appeared, showing a human running across open terrain. Humans are persistence hunters. They evolved to chase prey over distances of 40 to 50 kilometers, running for hours until their target collapsed from exhaustion. No other species on Earth can match human endurance at long distances. This evolutionary trait shaped everything about them. Representative Corvin, a military specialist from the northern provinces, stood to speak. High Inquisitor, how does the ability to run long distances explain their tactical superiority? An excellent question, Representative. Velis pulled up combat footage from the various encounters. Watch how human ships move during engagements. They don't seek quick victories. They maintain distance. They observe. They wait for optimal firing solutions. They fight like persistence hunters, patient, methodical, always thinking several steps ahead. When Battle Group Hammerfall attempted to capture the Pathfinder, the humans didn't panic or flee. They simply outlasted our tactical decision-making cycle. Another representative spoke up. But their weapons technology, kinetic projectiles? Those are primitive. On the surface, yes, Velis agreed. But consider this. Humans developed ranged weapons before they developed agriculture. They were throwing stones to hunt animals while still living in caves. This is unprecedented among known species. Most civilizations develop agriculture first, then tools, then eventually weapons. Humans reversed that order because they needed weapons to survive. The hologram showed a progression of human weapons: simple thrown stones, then spears, then bows and arrows, then firearms, and finally the relativistic railguns their ships carried. Humans have been perfecting ranged combat for over 2 million years, Velis said. By the time they reached the stars, they had such mastery of kinetic weapons that they saw no reason to adopt energy-based systems. Why change what works perfectly? Velis said from the Five. And it does work. Grand Marshal Torvan spoke from his position near the Emperor. Their railguns have accuracy and stopping power that exceeds our plasma cannons at any range. We dismissed kinetic weapons as primitive. They perfected what we abandoned. Velis nodded. Which brings me to the most important aspect of the human paradigm, their political structure, or rather, their lack of unified political structure. The hologram shifted to show a map of Earth with hundreds of colored regions marked across its surface. When humans developed faster than light travel, they did not have a unified world government. Earth has approximately 200 sovereign nations, each with its own government, culture, and priorities. These nations compete with each other economically, scientifically, and sometimes militarily. Murmurs of confusion rippled through the assembly. Representative Corvin spoke again. How can a divided species possibly coordinate space exploration? They don't coordinate in the way we understand it, Velis explained. The 12 exploration vessels we've encountered were funded and built by a coalition of Earth nations working together voluntarily, not through central authority. Each ship operates independently, making its own decisions while following broad mission guidelines. This decentralization is alien to imperial thinking, but it has significant advantages. She pulled up a timeline showing technological development rates. Because Earth nations compete with each other, they innovate rapidly. The Empire developed faster than light travel over 800 cycles of steady research. Humans went from first powered flight to moon landing in 66 of their years. From moon landing to FTL travel took only 83 more years. They achieved in less than 2 centuries what took us nearly a millennium. Competition drives innovation, Emperor Carveth observed. This is not a comforting thought. Meaning see. I'm seen. Unquote. Meaning see. Meaning seen. I'm seen. Meaning seen. No, Your Majesty. But it is a useful one. Humans are not inherently more intelligent than other species. They simply structure their civilization to reward rapid innovation and adapt quickly to new challenges. When they encountered the Empire's military forces, They had already studied our tactics and technology for years. They designed their defenses specifically to counter our strengths. Representative Thaxis, a diplomat from the eastern provinces, stood. High Inquisitor, you speak of human advantages, but what are their weaknesses? Surely, they must have vulnerabilities. Velis paused, considering her answer carefully. Their greatest weakness is also their greatest strength, their diversity. Earth has 7,000 different languages, dozens of major religions, and countless cultural traditions that sometimes conflict with each other. They have struggled throughout their history with cooperation. They have fought wars among themselves that nearly destroyed their civilization multiple times. So they are prone to internal conflict, Thaxis said. This could be exploited. I would advise strongly against attempting that, Representative. Velis's tone became stern. Yes, humans fight among themselves, but when faced with external threats, they unify with remarkable speed. Their history shows repeated patterns of competing nations joining together to face common enemies. And as Ambassador Park told Grand Marshal Torvan, the 12 exploration vessels we've encountered are peaceful. Their actual military remains at Earth, protecting their homeworld. We have not seen humanity's war-fighting capability, only their defensive capability. The chamber fell silent as the implications settled over the assembly. They had seen what human explorers could do. What could human warriors accomplish? Emperor Karveth stood, drawing all attention to himself. This is precisely why I have chosen diplomatic relations over continued conflict. High Inquisitor Velis has demonstrated that humanity operates from a different paradigm than any species we've encountered. They combine qualities we thought incompatible: individualism with cooperation, competition with unity, peaceful intentions with military capability. We can fight them, and perhaps eventually overwhelm them through sheer numbers. Or we can learn from them, as they learn from us. He activated the central holographic display, showing a representation of the galaxy with Earth's star system highlighted. Humanity sent 12 ships in 12 different directions from their homeworld. 12 vessels scattered across the galaxy, each making their own first contact with whatever civilizations they encounter. We know about the 12 ships that reached our borders. But what about the others? How many other species have encountered humans by now? How many alliances might humanity be forming while we debate whether to fight or befriend them? The Emperor's words struck home. The galaxy was vast, filled with countless species and civilizations. If humans were establishing relationships with multiple empires simultaneously, the political landscape was shifting in ways the Kalvari Empire hadn't anticipated. I propose we see humanity not as a threat to be eliminated but as a partner to be cultivated, Karveth continued. They have technology we don't understand. They have tactical approaches we don't anticipate. They have perspectives shaped by a death world and a fragmented political structure that somehow survived to reach the stars. We can learn from them, and in return, we can teach them about the galaxy they're exploring, the dangers they don't know exist, and the opportunities for cooperation that benefit us all. A holographic display activated, showing Captain Elena Park's face. I have invited Ambassador Park to address this assembly via real-time communication. She is currently at Earth's embassy on the moon Tyrus. Ambassador Park, can you hear us? Elena's image solidified, showing her standing in what appeared to be a simple office with Earth's blue sphere symbol on the wall behind her. Emperor Karveth, members of the Grand Assembly, thank you for allowing me to speak to you today. Ambassador Park, Representative Corvin said, his tone formal but not hostile. My question is direct. What does humanity want from the Kalvari Empire? Elena smiled. That human expression of openness and friendliness. Representative Corvin, we want what any neighbor wants from another neighbor. Respect for our sovereignty, fair trade relationships, cultural exchange, and peaceful coexistence. We didn't come to your space to conquer or colonize. We came to explore, to learn, and to meet the other intelligent species that exist out here among the stars. You speak of peace, yet you defeated our military forces, another representative challenged. We defended ourselves when your military tried to capture us by force, Elena corrected. We've been very careful not to kill anyone. Every engagement could have ended in destroyed ships and thousands of casualties. We chose non-lethal approaches because killing is not our goal. Freedom is our goal. We will defend our right to exist peacefully, but we prefer to build friendships instead of making enemies. Representative Thaxis spoke again. Ambassador, please forgive my directness, but many in this chamber are concerned. Your 12 exploration vessels defeated every Imperial force they encountered. What guarantee do we have that humanity won't become aggressive once you establish a stronger presence in this region? Elena's expression became serious, thoughtful. Representative Thaxis, I can't give you guarantees about what humanity will or won't do 100 years from now. I can only tell you about who we are now and what we value. Earth nearly destroyed itself 3 times in our history. We created weapons that could make our planet uninhabitable. We fought wars that killed millions of people. We were stupid and violent and self-destructive. She paused, making sure she had the assembly's complete attention. But we survived those mistakes because we learned from them. We learned that cooperation achieves more than conflict. We learned that different cultures can coexist and benefit from diversity instead of fearing it. We learned that the universe is big enough for everyone to find their place without taking someone else's place. When we finally reached the stars, we promised ourselves we wouldn't repeat Earth's mistakes out here. So, you're saying humanity has transcended its violent nature? Emperor Carveth asked. No, Your Majesty. I'm saying we understand our violent nature and actively work against it. We're not peaceful because violence is foreign to us. We're peaceful because we know exactly how destructive violence can be, and we choose a different path. That choice becomes easier when we meet species who are willing to talk instead of shoot first. The Emperor nodded slowly. Ambassador Park, if the Empire were to face a genuine threat, not from humanity, but from some other source, would humanity consider alliance? Would you fight alongside us? Elena was quiet for a moment, considering her words. Your Majesty, that's a hypothetical question that depends on many factors, but I can tell you this. Humans understand what it means to stand with friends against threats. If the Empire proved itself to be a genuine friend to humanity, and if a threat emerged that required mutual defense, then yes, I believe Earth would honor that friendship with action. We don't abandon our allies. Even though the Empire tried to capture your ships and only accepted diplomatic relations after you proved too difficult to defeat, Elena's smile returned. Your Majesty. Every friendship starts somewhere. Some begin easily. Some begin with misunderstandings that need correction. What matters isn't how the relationship starts, but how both sides choose to move forward. You're choosing to move forward with diplomacy and mutual respect. So are we. That's a good foundation. Representative Corvin stood again. Ambassador, one final question. High Inquisitor Velis mentioned that your exploration vessels are not military ships. Can you clarify the difference? Of course, Representative. The 12 vessels you've encountered were designed for long-term exploration missions. They're self-sufficient, well-defended, and capable of handling most threats they might encounter. But they're primarily scientific and diplomatic vessels, crewed by explorers, scientists, and diplomats. Elena paused. Earth's actual military remains at home, protecting our planet and our star system. Those ships are purpose-built for combat, not exploration. They're faster, more heavily armed, and operate under different rules of engagement. And how many military vessels does Earth have? Corvin asked. Enough to defend ourselves if necessary. But Representative, asking about military capabilities is like asking someone how many locks they have on their door. The answer doesn't really matter as long as you're entering as a friend instead of trying to break in. We're offering friendship. We hope you'll accept it without needing to know every detail of our defensive capabilities. The Emperor laughed, a deep harmonic sound. Well said, Ambassador Park. You have diplomatic instincts that would serve you well in imperial politics. Thank you, Your Majesty. Though I suspect imperial politics are significantly more complex than anything I'm used to. Earth's 200 nations arguing with each other is chaos enough. Emperor Karveth addressed the assembly one final time. I call for a formal vote on the establishment of permanent diplomatic relations with humanity. Those in favor, signal approval. The vote took several minutes as representatives consulted with their constituents and advisors. When the count finished, the result was clear. 2/3 in favor, with the remainder abstaining rather than voting against. No representatives voted for outright rejection. The motion carries, Karveth announced. The Calvari Empire officially recognizes humanity as a sovereign, spacefaring civilization and establishes full diplomatic relations with Earth. Ambassador Park, your embassy on Tyrus is formally acknowledged as human territory under diplomatic protection. Thank you, Your Majesty. Earth is honored by this relationship. The transmission ended. The assembly gradually emptied as representatives departed to send reports to their provinces. Eventually, only Emperor Karveth, Grand Marshal Torvan, and High Inquisitor Velis remained in the chamber. Your Majesty, Velis said quietly, I should mention one final detail from my research. Yes, High Inquisitor. When humans sent those 12 exploration vessels into different directions, they weren't randomly scattering ships across the galaxy. They were deliberately spreading out to maximize their chances of encountering other civilizations. Each ship carries the same message, the same offer of friendship, the same willingness to defend themselves if necessary. And, the Emperor prompted, and in the 6 months we've been negotiating with the humans who reached our borders, the other 11 ships have been traveling, exploring, and presumably making their own first contacts. Humanity isn't establishing a relationship with just the Calvari Empire, Your Majesty. They're establishing relationships with multiple species simultaneously across a region of space covering thousands of light years. The Emperor considered this. You're saying humanity is building a network? Yes, Your Majesty. A network of alliances, trade relationships, and diplomatic connections. Not an empire in the traditional sense, but something potentially more influential. They're becoming bridge builders between civilizations that might never have contacted each other otherwise. Retrici continue. Fascinating, Emperor Karveth said softly. So while we debated whether to fight or befriend them, they were making friends elsewhere. Quite possibly, Your Majesty. Velis pulled up a star chart, showing the approximate vectors of the 12 human vessels, based on their known trajectories. Based on our calculations, at least 3 of those ships should have encountered the Tiverian Federation by now. 2, more likely reached the Borderless Collective. Another may have contacted the nomadic clans in the outer spiral. Grand Marshal Torvan studied the display with professional interest. They're not building an empire. They're building a coalition. Without even intending to, perhaps, Velis agreed. Each ship operates independently, making its own diplomatic decisions. But the cumulative effect is that humanity is establishing itself as a known, respected presence across multiple regions simultaneously. In 50 years, when those exploration vessels return to Earth, humanity will have relationships with dozens of civilizations. Mar. In 50 years, and those civilizations will have relationships with each other, connected through humanity. The Emperor mused. The humans become the hub of a galactic network simply by being friendly explorers. He laughed again. This time, with genuine admiration. They're achieving through curiosity and openness what we've tried to achieve through strength and intimidation. I'm not sure whether to be impressed or concerned. I recommend impressed, Your Majesty, Torvan said. Concerned implies we view them as competition. If we view them as partners instead, their network becomes our network. We gain access to all those relationships they're building. Assuming we maintain positive relations with humanity, Velis cautioned. If we mistreat them or betray their trust, we become isolated while they maintain connections everywhere else. They've inadvertently positioned themselves as critical to galactic diplomacy. Emperor Karveth walked to the chamber's observation window, looking out at the cityscape of Vex Prime stretching to the horizon. Billions of imperial citizens living their lives, unaware of how significantly the galaxy had just shifted. 3,000 years, he said quietly. For 3,000 years, the Calvari Empire has been the dominant civilization in this region. We measured our success by territory controlled, species subjugated, and military supremacy maintained. Then, 12 small ships from a fragmented species on a death world teach us that perhaps we've been measuring success incorrectly. Your Majesty? Velis asked. High Inquisitor, Marshal Torvan. I want you both to prepare comprehensive proposals. Velis, I want education exchange programs with Earth. Send our best scholars to study human history, culture, and technology. Invite their scholars here to learn about the Empire. If we're going to coexist with humanity, we need to understand them deeply, not superficially. Yes, Your Majesty. Marshal Torvan, I want military exchange programs. Not to learn their tactical secrets, though, if they choose to share. We'll learn. But to teach our officers how to think differently. Our military has become predictable because we haven't faced real challenges in centuries. The humans defeated us by thinking in ways we didn't anticipate. That's a valuable lesson. Very one. We haven't faced degraded. Our may not. The lesson. I'll coordinate with Ambassador Park immediately, Your Majesty. And both of you. The Emperor continued, turning to face them. I want you to consider this question. What if the Empire's future greatness comes not from expansion and conquest, but from cooperation and mutual benefit? What if the humans are showing us a path forward that's more sustainable than the path we've followed? Velis and Torvan exchanged glances. The question was almost heretical by traditional imperial standards, but after 6 months of studying humanity and negotiating with them, both had come to similar conclusions independently. Your Majesty, Velis said carefully, I believe that's exactly what humanity is showing us. They're not stronger than us. Militarily, we could overwhelm them with sufficient numbers, but they're more adaptable, more creative, and more willing to see potential friends instead of potential threats. Those qualities may be more valuable than raw military power. Agreed, Torvan added. Every empire eventually reaches the limit of what it can conquer and control. We've been approaching that limit for the past 2 centuries. Our expansion has slowed not because we lack military capability, but because administering more territory becomes increasingly difficult. Humanity offers an alternative model: connection without conquest, influence without occupation. The Emperor nodded slowly. Then we have much to learn, and much to teach, as well. The Empire has maintained stability across hundreds of worlds for millennia. That's knowledge humanity will need as they grow. We can become partners in the truest sense, each contributing what we do well. Several thousand light-years away, aboard the exploration vessel Pathfinder, Captain Elena Park stood in her ready room, reviewing the successful vote in the Imperial Assembly. Her crew had gathered in the common area, celebrating the diplomatic victory with improvised music and laughter that echoed through the ship's corridors. She pulled up a communication interface and began recording a message for Earth, knowing it would take weeks to reach home even through quantum relay systems. Mission Log, Day 1412. Captain Elena Park reporting. I'm pleased to inform Earth Command that we have successfully established formal diplomatic relations with the Calvari Empire. After 6 months of careful negotiations, the Empire's Grand Assembly voted to accept permanent diplomatic status. She paused, choosing her next words carefully. The Calvari are proud, powerful, and deeply invested in their own superiority. But they're also pragmatic, intelligent, and capable of changing their perspectives when presented with new information. We've shown them that humanity won't be conquered or intimidated, but we've also shown them that we prefer friendship to conflict. They've responded positively. Elena looked at the star chart on her wall, showing Earth's position relative to their current location. Home was so impossibly far away, yet through the miracle of faster-than-light travel, not truly unreachable. I think we've accomplished something important here. Not just for humanity, but for this region of space. The Calvari Empire has existed for 3,000 years, building power through military strength. We've introduced them to a different approach, building influence through cooperation. If we can maintain this relationship, it could change how they interact with other species. Not just us. She smiled, thinking about the conversations she'd had with Emperor Carveth, the grudging respect from Grand Marshal Torvan, and the intense curiosity from High Inquisitor Velis. They're good people, in their own way. They've made mistakes, but they're willing to learn. That's all any of us can ask for, really. A chime indicated incoming communication. Elena checked the identifier and smiled more broadly. Message continues. After brief interruption, she activated the communication, and the holographic display showed Captain Richard Olson from the Meridian. Elena, congratulations on the vote. Earth Command is going to be thrilled. Thanks, Richard. Any word from the other vessels? I know the Odyssey was heading toward the Tiverian Federation's territory. Just received confirmation this morning. The Odyssey made contact 4 months ago. The Tiverians are apparently much easier to negotiate with than the Calvari. They accepted diplomatic relations after a single meeting. Captain Anderson says they're fascinated by human cultural diversity and want to establish immediate trade relationships. That's wonderful news. What about the others? The venture reports contact with something called the Borderless Collective. They're apparently a coalition of species who reject territorial governments entirely, living on mobile space habitats. They love humanity's decentralized political structure. They think we're kindred spirits. Elena laughed. Of course we'd find space anarchists and get along with them immediately. That's very human. The Pioneer is still in deep exploration with no contacts yet. But the Seeker found a pre-FTL civilization and is observing from a distance per our protocols. The Wayfinder encountered a species called the nomadic clans, who apparently migrate through space seasonally. They're negotiating trade agreements based on meeting at specific times and locations. So, at least half our vessels have made successful contact with other civilizations. Elena felt a surge of pride. We're actually doing it. Richard, humanity is becoming part of the galactic community. We are. And the best part? Every civilization we meet gets a slightly different impression of humanity based on which ship they encounter first. The Calvari got you diplomatic, patient, willing to fight but preferring not to. The Tiverians got Anderson, academic, curious, focused on cultural exchange. The Borderless Collective got Martinez on the venture independent, anti-authoritarian, suspicious of large governments. So they're seeing humanity's diversity rather than a single unified face, Elena said thoughtfully. That might actually work to our advantage. Nobody can stereotype us if every human they meet is different. Exactly. We're not presenting ourselves as a monolithic empire because we're not one. We're humans, complicated, contradictory, and somehow making it work anyway. After the communication ended, Elena returned to her message for Earth Command. Additional information. Multiple exploration vessels have now made successful contact with various civilizations. Humanity's reputation is spreading across this region of space. We're becoming known as explorers, traders, diplomats, and yes, as people you shouldn't try to capture, because we defend ourselves very effectively. She looked at Earth's blue image on her screen. The mission you sent us on was to explore and make peaceful contact with whoever we found out here. I'm happy to report. Mission accomplished. But we've also done something more. We've shown the galaxy that there's a species from that small blue world in the outer spiral who values friendship, respects diversity, and will stand up for themselves when necessary. We've shown them that humans are worth knowing. Elena paused, emotion creeping into her voice despite her professional demeanor. I miss Earth. I miss home. But I'm proud of what we're accomplishing out here. We left Earth as explorers, but we're becoming ambassadors. We're building bridges between civilizations that might never have connected otherwise. We're proving that humanity belongs among the stars. She straightened, returning to formal report mode. Captain Elena Park of the Pathfinder, concluding report. We will remain in Calvary space for another 6 months, continuing cultural exchange and establishing regular communication protocols. After that, we'll resume our exploration mission into the next region. Pathfinder out. Elena filed the report and returned to her crew's celebration. In the common area, her crew members from a dozen different Earth nations were sharing food, music, and stories. An engineer from Japan taught a pilot from Nigeria a traditional card game. A medical officer from Brazil argued cheerfully with a communications specialist from Sweden about the best way to prepare coffee. A navigator from Australia challenged a weapons officer from Canada to a game of darts using a magnetic board on the wall. This was humanity, Elena thought. Not perfect, not unified, sometimes frustratingly disorganized, but fundamentally good at finding ways to connect across differences. If they could maintain that spirit while exploring the galaxy, humanity would do just fine among the stars. Her first officer, Commander James Chen, approached with 2 drinks in hand. Captain, I think this calls for a toast. We just made history. Elena accepted the drink gratefully. We did. But you know what? I think this is just the beginning. The Empire voted to accept us today. But real friendship takes time. Real trust takes even longer. We've got years of work ahead to turn this diplomatic recognition into genuine partnership. You sound like you're planning to stay longer than 6 months. I'm planning for humanity to be part of this region of space for centuries, James. What we do now sets the precedent for every human who comes after us. We need to do it right. Chen raised his glass. To doing it right, then. To humanity among the stars. And to the friends we're making along the way. To friends, Elena agreed, clinking her glass against his. Above them, through the observation windows, the stars of the Calvary Empire twinkled in the darkness. And among those stars, 11 other human vessels were traveling their own paths, making their own contacts, building their own friendships. 12 ships, 12 different approaches, 12 different stories, all contributing to humanity's first chapter as a spacefaring species among many. Earth had sent explorers into the unknown. Those explorers were returning home not with conquered territory or subjugated species, but with friends, allies, and a network of relationships that would shape humanity's future for generations to come. The galaxy was vast and full of wonders. And humanity was learning that the greatest wonder wasn't discovering new worlds. It was discovering that they weren't alone, and that the beings they met among the stars could become partners in exploring the endless mysteries the universe held. Somewhere in the darkness between stars, 12 small ships carried humanity's hope, curiosity, and willingness to connect across the void. And slowly, steadily, they were proving that a species from a death world who had nearly destroyed themselves could become exactly what the galaxy needed: bridge builders, peacemakers, and friends to all who would accept the offer. Captain Elena Park looked at her crew celebrating together and smiled. They'd left Earth uncertain what they would find among the stars. They'd found possibility. They'd found community. They'd found home, not a place,